While I found that some of the precepts Esteban mentioned were simply destined to assure that the tradition not be spoiled by the ignoramus using it as a showcase kind of thing, I listened very carefully when he spoke about the focus the shaman had to give to the brew, about the mantras he had to recite over the brew, about the prayers he had to say, and over the energetic input he had to give to the brew in form of total attention and a stringent concentration of his thought energy upon the outcome of the experience. 2. The lasting trance. The second interesting point in the experience is that after having vomited out completely the contents of my stomach, and very violently so, the effects of the trance lasted for several more hours. I already felt sick after the first 30 minutes passed agreeably, went on my knees and experienced a rather painful purge because my chest and back muscles began to hurt intensely. It took at least half an hour until I was back on my chair. And even then, the vomiting reflex persisted while nothing was coming out anymore, except small quantities of stomach saliva. And every time I closed my eyes, all would restart as a meticulously working computer program. Closing my eyes was like a code contained in that software. When I closed my eyes, and not before, the intelligence namely asked me telepathically if I wished to restart, affirming silently I was at once experiencing the slight visual effects again, and the trance began to get hold of my body once more. Unfortunately, every time, instead of being able to let myself get deeper and deeper into that agreeable state of numbness and comfort, something in me terribly resisted and built an annoying level of anxiety that I was absolutely unable to get rid of. The anxiety then, in turn, triggered the vomiting reflex. I was mentally very clear about it all and how it was set up altogether. And I told Esteban several times that I understood my resistance to the brew as a psychological defense against self-abandonment. And yet I was unable to cope with that dreadful anxiety. Esteban, however, had no advice for me except suggesting me to go back to my room and sleep. And I felt helpless then and kind of guilty. Why was I resisting? This went on for several turns. Each turn, I would call him for help, and he would slowly get up from his chair, put one of his hands on my head, blow cigarette smoke in my face, and give strokes to my luminous body with a feather. And this felt great. Interestingly, when he blew smoke in my face, the trance immediately vanished, even if I left my eyes closed. How could that be, as the DMT was all the time in my blood? These few moments filled me with delight, with confidence, with positive feelings and a sense of well-being. And then I would thank him, he would go back to his chair and sink in his own trance, and all would get back to the former desperate condition, and the vomiting would restart. And eventually I asked to be guided back to my room, and even there, about 1 to 2 hours after I had vomited out the brew, the process would restart in just the same way as before, just upon closing my eyes as the signal to restart. Sleeping was only possible in the early morning hours, after more than 2 hours of a virulent duplex reaction of my body. I got diarrhea and vomiting at the same time. I was once really laughing about it, while I felt so much pain and misery, because I was getting into a rocking movement between the toilet and the sink that were luckily quite close to each other. That was my ayahuasca rock. Only when I was completely empty and pure, I felt I was ready for sleep. And then it was really wonderful, like being in heaven. A wonderful dreamless sleep and a very happy, light feeling when waking up in the early morning.